Afternoon, ladies and gents, and we've finished with our Peeps tour now. And as we leave Peeps' childhood memory of St Augustine's Church behind, and keep in mind St John's for a future visit at Hackney, I'll take you to a very interesting London location. Looking back through the churchyard, and we are going down this way. And we're going to walk down on this side a very well preserved Georgian street. And on this side, quite a modern looking street. Look at these old houses, look. Sutton Place we're on at the moment. Love old houses like this. Something pretty great here, look. Things that you see on a London street, eh?
Yeah. Okay. Alright. Let's go.
Back from whence we've come. Nice street. Our location's right at the end and right.
I'm sorry, I don't take you to talk to people.
Sutton House is our location. Point up a minute.
At least then you'll live near the girl.
And we are now on Homerton High Street and at Sutton House. I'll give you some exterior views of it first, because I have already been in and filmed. Opening times for anyone that comes. It is National Trust members going free. It is £5.50 for a tour, a self-guided tour of the house and grounds, which I think was very reasonable. Look, and this is the house, Sutton House, the National Trust by W.A. Robertson, in memory of his brothers Norman Cairns and Robertson. Norman Cairns, Robertson, captain. Let's go a bit closer so I can see it. Captain of the 2nd Battalion Hampshire Regiment, who died the 20th of June 1917 at Hanover, Germany. Of Lawrence Grant Robertson, 2nd Lieutenant, 2nd Battalion King's Own Scottish Borderers, who was killed in action in France during the Battle of the Somme in or near Delville Wood, 30th of July 1916. Here's some exterior views of the house. And as I say, this is its front door, which would have been its main front door back in the day, but you don't go in through this way. How you go in is through here. Yeah, excellent. It's fairly quiet at the moment. It was packed with children earlier, so I couldn't really film, so I've been away, had a smoke. I've already filmed inside. Sorry, beg your pardon. I've already filmed inside. What an amazing place. and even got to play virginals. So that's a first for me. Very tricky because what we would consider with a piano, the white keys are black and the black keys are white. So it's like, oh right, this is quite different if you're used to playing a piano. Here we have this bus. You've got this here, which is quite interesting. But the house itself is really lovely. Inside there's so many rooms and so many parts to it, including a chapel. I'm going to turn this way and walk backwards because there's kids behind me and I don't want to film them. This is what I want to show you here. Oh, look at that. Well, I never did. The things you see in London. Oh, I could live in that quite happily. And this takes you around the sideway of the house. This is where you go in, main entrance, for viewing the house and tours. You can go on guided tours. They have guided tours. The entrance fee, you don't have to pay extra for the guided tour. You just find out what time it is and tag along. But being as I film, I do self-guided. And this is this little side area over here. Won't be this way. Very lovely and elegant place. This bit, believe it or not, that looks very old and in parts, and is made from old materials in parts. 1991 and built by a lottery heritage grant. But our feet here, look, the old well. So, before we go into the house, a little of its history. And here you see very much a different world to the Hackney that we see of today. And this is Hackney and Sutton House, or Brick Place. The house just above the little stone bridge, now being marked with a blue arrow, as it would have looked in around 1535. Our house there, and over to the left you can see the old church of St Augustine's. What a different world to the one that we walk around today. In the 15th and 16th century, bricks were actually quite rare. Most houses were made from timber and wattle and daub panels. Brick was only used in chimneys, really. In 1535, Sutton House was unusual for being built almost entirely from brick, and it was probably a landmark in the area, and this could account for the house's original name, its first name of the Brick Place, spelt B-R-Y-K. The house was built for Sir Ralph Sadler, who you see here, an important diplomat and courtier of Henry VIII, Edward VI, Mary I and Elizabeth I. The original Tudor building with its narrow red bricks forms the heart of the present house, which is one of Hackney's and London's oldest houses. Later owners made alterations and additions using different types of bricks. Here you see it in 1900. Here you see it in the circa 1930s. This house has had a fascinating history, everything from rich and influential courtiers like Sir Ralph to merchants and businessmen and squatters even. At one point it became an abandoned house and was squatted in, and here we see this article from the Hackney Gazette on March the 6th, 1987. 400-year-old Sutton House may become flats. Campaign to save part of Hackney's heritage. A campaign has been launched to save one of Hackney's and London's oldest homes. I'll pause on this for a while if you want to read. Should be moving on now, so if you've not finished reading, just pause. And here we see it kind of in that phase where it was abandoned and had been squatted in, and it hadn't become the beautiful museum that we know today of Sutton Place. And before we go in, for your delight and delectation, a timeline starting from the very first, 1535. Brick Place is built as a family home for courtier Ralph Sadler. 1550, Brick Place is sold to John Matchell. 1627, Captain Millward, a silk merchant, buys the house. 1657, the house is run as a school by Sarah Freeman. 1741, John Cox acquires the property. 1752, the house is split into Ivy House, renamed Picton House, and in 1816 Millward House. 1818, Millward House is run as a boarding school for girls. 1820, Charles Horton Pulley moves to Picton House. 1895, the Church of St John at Hackney buy and reunite the two halves. It becomes St John's Church Institute. 1938, the National Trust buys the house and rents it to voluntary organisations, Hackney Council and Trade Union. 1985, squatters move in and rename the house to the Blue House, hosting community events and a cafe. And that was the image that we just saw it in. 1987, steep renovation costs lead the trust to want to sell the house, and Save Sutton House campaign is formed, and due to its success, restoration work began in 1989. 1994, Sutton House opens to the public. 2014, the Breakers Yard Community Garden is launched, and that is where we did walk through. Welcome to Sutton House, the Breakers Yard. There's information there for you. I shall pause for a little bit if you want to read. If not, off we go in a sec. And moving on now. Lastly, just for some more information, it gives you a layout of the house and the rooms and whatnot. Everything from the Georgian parlor to the underground chapel to the squatter's room and the brick cellar, and so much in this house. There really is a lot. I'm surprised that I managed to cover it all in under 2 hours really, but there is a host of pictures as well to follow this post with all the information and description boards and things if you want to read those. So ladies and gents, join me as we go inside the house. Welcome to the inside. It's quite busy, but sorry. So we'll just pick the areas that are least busy when we can. Oh, beams, look. History magazine on the lovely mullioned window. It seems quieter upstairs, so we'll start up there. No, I'll tell you where we'll start first. The most interesting area, or one of the most for me. I like cellars. So this is where we shall start. Whether Pete's visited this house or not, I do not know. He most certainly would have gone past it. Being one of the main gentry houses in the town or the village at the time, really, it was a small community. It is just a brick. Is a brick just a brick? At the end of the last ice age, as the ice melted the ground, thawed out finally, sandy dust was whipped up into the atmosphere by the wind. It fell to earth again, with the rain washed into streams and rivers where it formed sediments known as brick earth. Brick Place, Sutton House, was built on the terraces of Hackney Brook, where thick deposits of brick earth. This was made into the bricks which were used to build the house. The brickmakers dug up the brick earth in the autumn, leaving it in piles to weather. A period of frost and thaw in the winter months would help break down the clay and make it easier to work. In the springtime it was mixed with water, kneaded into a smooth, thick paste. A lump of this clay was then thrown into a wooden mould, and the excesses scraped away with a stick, a strike. The soft brick was then tipped out onto the straw and left to dry in a pile or a hack for about a month before being fired in a small kiln. The bricks were rough and uneven, but were about 2 times 4 times 9, which is 50 times 100 times 220 millimeters, which makes them 15 millimeter thinner than today's bricks. Skinny bricks tend to be older, fatter bricks are modern. Stand in the courtyard and compare the fat modern bricks of the Wenlock barn and the hall at the back of Sutton House with the skinny old bricks on the other 3 walls. Carved oak timber dating from the 16th century, probably forming part of a front gable where the roof was altered, probably in the 18th century. The older timbers were incorporated within it. Discovered during the repairs to the roof in 1962. Ooh. Shit. Historically, the cellar would have been used to store items such as food, beer, wine. The entrance to the cellar would have been through an external door down a stairwell at the front door. The external door was likely blocked up between 1741 and 1743 when major renovations to the front of the house took place. Pause to read the longer descriptions. Oak barge board. Fill into the middle bit there. Beer and water. In Tudor England, everyone, including children, drank beer at all times of the day, even at breakfast. They did not drink to get drunk, as the beer was very weak. The water was full of bugs and disease. Beer was safer. Ale is similar to beer, but it does not contain hops, which add a distinctive bitter flavour and act as a preservative. Today the water is clean and safe to drink, but we still drink beer. Why do you think that is? Because it tastes nice and it's thoroughly enjoyable, that's why. Of course, in moderation. Let me go into this area here. The storage. Roman brick, circa 100 BC to 300 AD. Early roof tiles. Circa 1895, the houses were reunited as a church institute. The house was restored as St John's Church Institute. When Lockbarn built, the old buildings on the east side were demolished and the kitchen and caretaker's flat built. So I'll read out the shorter descriptions for you, of course, but longer ones, pause and read. Excellent. So there's a tour going round as well, you see, so this is the panelled room. Linfold panels. Moving away now, so pause to read if you want to. Oh, what an amazing room. The Linfold parlour, this is called. In Tudor times, the master of the house may have used this room for conducting his business. The first owner of Sutton House, Ralph Sadler, was a prominent man in the court of Henry VIII. He was a knight, a diplomat involved in major political decisions of the day, including the dissolution of the monasteries. Many secret conversations and delicate negotiations would have taken place here. The Linfold parlour is so named because of the wall panels were carved to look like draped cloth. Wood panelling was popular in Tudor times, but it was a luxury item and expensive to make. When people moved house, they took their panelling with them, along with glass from their windows, wall hangings and luxury furnishings. A Linfold pattern is also painted behind the panel on the right as you enter the room. This may have been a temporary decoration while the panels were being made, or perhaps panels didn't go all the way to the floor. So the bottom half of the wall is painted to complete the decorative effect. Its front installation up until the mid-18th century of the panelling may have well been painted in bright colours. One colour scheme, the panels were corn yellow against a background of emerald green. The frames mahogany red with stenciled gold floral motifs. Take a look behind the hinged panels to see the Tudor brickwork and Linfold wall paintings. Where are these hinged panels then? Oh, here we are. Yeah, look. It's a fine old fireplace as well. Telltale House, silk linen, natural dyes, beeswax, mild steel. obviously for my TikTokers and Instagrammers, I am doing occasional ones where I do a complete separate filming, but with such a busy location, I'll have to screen record these ones into 10-minute segments and put them on for you like that. Dalston Stories by Future Hackney. Young Things by Connie Swift. Pause to read these descriptions. So this is what I like about London, that you do get past and present that mingle together, and this, what we're looking at, may not be everyone's cup of tea, but one day it will become the past, so there's that. It's a nice panelled room we're in as well, look. I love all this old wood panelling. Dalston Stories by Future Hackney. As I say, pause to read. It's only £5.50 entrance fee to get in for the whole house and the grounds and that, which I think's brilliant. Look at that old range, look. Think of the people that would have sat around this and had their cup of probably Twinings tea or mug of ale and exchanged many a different story. Look, an old cracked bill. I'm nosy I am, I can never resist looking behind the cupboards and cabinets and things like that. This is the painted staircase, which we shall go up now. So called because it is a staircase that was once painted. Sorry.
Come in, Adam, be about it.
Look at all that. Sorry, beg your pardon, sorry. I think we'll do this room first because it's quiet. Wow. And that's the most interesting. Oh, look, a harpsichord. Or virginal. Set of virginals. So tempting, but I won't. I wouldn't dare. You can see the old lath and plaster walls there and how it's made up. These places. Look at the Tudor cradle, look. Object in focus, fire guard. Little chamber. Originally this room was probably a bedroom, reminding us that Sutton House was a home and that many families have lived in it over the years. The room may have been used by Sir Ralph's wife, Ellen, a cousin of Thomas Cromwell. She cared for their children and ran the house while her husband spent much of his time away at court or on diplomatic missions to Scotland and France. Ellen had previously been married to a man who had disappeared in Ireland and was presumed dead. Several years later she married Ralph. Her former husband suddenly returned. Oh wow. This would have made Ralph and Ellen's children illegitimate. Ralph had to rush back to Scotland to seek a private act of Parliament to annul the previous marriage, creating the first case of divorce grounds of abandonment. The original entrance to this little chamber was by the steep narrow stairway leading up from the linfold parlour below. This was in a corner of the room. By the diamond-leaded window, you can still see the original entrance by pulling back the panelled door. The 17th century owner of the house, Captain Millward, a wealthy silk merchant, blocked up the original entrance and cut a door through to his new painted staircase. Another door leading into the great chamber. Important guests used the little chamber as a separate room in which to retire during a party to rest, perhaps have informal meetings. The oak panelling on all except the north wall, which is more recent, probably dates from the middle of the 16th century. The panels might originally have been painted red as part of the elaborate decorative scheme, but in the 1890s cream paint covered the walls and fireplace. That's that. Like I said, if you pull back the panelled things, we should move on to our next room. This is the great chamber. The great chamber has always been a very important room and was used for parties and other celebrations. In Tudor times, banquets were held in the great hall on the ground floor. Only the most important guests would be invited upstairs to the great chamber to have a second course of delicacies such as sweetmeats. These would have been made from sugar, which was expensive as it had to be imported from Africa and the West Indies. Guests would have eaten pastilles, a type of solid meringue flavoured with ginger and lemon. They would also have a marchpane, which we now call marzipan, and fruit leather, made from fruit pulp. The old panelling on the walls dates from the early 17th century. This was an expensive decoration, a feature and only used in the most important rooms. Now the bottom row of the panels above the fireplace can be opened to show you the brick of the original fireplace at each end of the room. Paintings of people in Stuart costume. Portraits were painted at this time to show off the wealth and success of the sitter, possibly to commemorate a special event such as a forthcoming wedding. They also ensured that their family would remember the sitter after their death. The Great Chamber continued to be a gathering place in later times, including several periods when the house was used as a school. The longest lasting school here was Mrs. Freeman's Girls' School from 1657 to 1741, when the house was owned by St. John's Church Institute in the early 1900s. This was a billiard room. Take a look behind the hinged panelling above the fireplace, showing the original Tudor brickwork. Look out the south-facing window to the courtyard. The building was originally a traditional H shape, like many Tudor buildings. The courtyard would have been a formal herb garden. The Wenlock barn was built when the house was the St. John Church Institute. Members of St. John's Hackney Church Institute, who fell in the Great War. Sir Edwin Sadler, 2nd Baronet of Temple, Dinsley, Hertfordshire, died 14th July 1719 in his 58th year, painted by Mary Beale. And this is Lady Sadler, wife of Sir Edwin Sadler and widow of William Croom, MD, Fellow of the Royal Society, founded the Sadlerian Lectureship at Cambridge, died 1706, painted by Mary Beale. Oh look, a nice little blast from the past, isn't it? Shows us what the room was like. Sir Ralph Sadler, MP of Standon Hearts, the man himself, the man who had this house built, famous Tudor courtier. We are in the Victorian study. During the Victorian era, the landscape of Hackney underwent the biggest changes yet. At the start, it was a collection of villages. By the end, an inner city suburb. London itself, which spanned 4 miles in 1750, was 18 miles across by 1900. Farmland was sold off, transformed into streets of terraced houses for the growing middle class. Railways arrived within the great iron bridges across Mere Street. Hackney Brook was covered to make way for the roads, with trams and heavy traffic. Factories appeared, refining oil, producing plastic and manufacturing chocolates. Sutton House was still divided. In Victorian times, it was split in two by John Cox in 1752, with Ivy House, later Picton Place, to the east and Milford House to the west. A solicitor called Charles Pulley lived in Picton House for more than 40 years, until his death in 1864. Like many former residents, he was a Huguenot descendant. He was Hackney Vestry Chief Clerk and was publicly criticised as pluralist and a bungler, oh dear, for the way he financially exploited the many other parish posts he held. The Hackney Magazine and Parish Reforming published an article criticising his pluralism and high income for the church. Pulley allegedly barged into the office of the journal's editor Charles Green and threatened to horsewhip him. Green published a pamphlet about the ordeal, and Pulley gained a reputation for horsewhipping vestrymen. Pulley may have used this room to display some of his prized possessions, such as his collection of clocks and silverware. He could have shown them off when he entertained guests. Milford House from 1837 to 1875 was a girls' boarding school established by William and Eliza Temple, housing up to 24 pupils, 4 teachers, 3 servants, and their daughter. When the house was being restored in the early 1990s, many items from the girls' school were found, which can be seen in the display case. Guardrobe. I thought it was toilet. Ensuite. Early ensuite toilet built into the cupboard.
This is the kitchen. No, it's not. This is not finding the kitchen. This is the kitchen.
I think this is more like a dining hall. Kitchen is maybe over there.
I suppose these were the items they found, look, from the girls' school.
Hey, stop it! Stop it! I'm going crazy now. Stop it! I'm only going with Xavier. I'm only going with Xavier. Not you!
That's better.
He said only me.
Yeah? No chicken.
It's a lovely room, this, I'll say that for it.
I don't have a banana.
Revel.
Helping you.
Another famous Elizabethan courtier.
You going upstairs? Did you find another one yet?
No.
Let's go up there then. Try and find it.
I'm going up there.
I think when this house was newly up, the view from this window would have been extremely different, wouldn't it? Join me for part 2. Hope you enjoyed that lovely room. As we leave the Great Hall. Go back round this way. And up to another level. I don't know what's up here, but we will find out. Isabella Road, we're looking out onto there. See the old beams of the structure of the house there. Oh look, like a 1960s students thing. Gosh, I can almost smell the weed and hear the music. Now this has come as a little surprise, isn't it? Homes for all. Must have been squatters here, I wonder. What my nan used to call a ghetto blaster. Guys were made in London, 16th century. Nicked from a 17th century stoneware bottle, French or German, stoneware drinking jug. Nicked from a drinking flask, 1550 to 1650. Green glazed dish made in Surrey, Hampshire, borders 1600 to 1700. Tin glazed Delft wall tiles used as fire surrounds made in the Netherlands and Britain, 17th and 18th centuries. Two pieces of Tudor glassware were found below the south part of the west wing, now part of the Caff Bar, which originally functioned as a still room for the preparations of medicines and spirits. So that's interesting. Excavations beneath Sutton House were carried out by archaeologists from the Museum of London in 1990. The wide range of pottery from the excavations displayed here with a complete examples on loan from the Museum of London show what sort of tableware and cooking pots were used by people who lived and worked in the house in the 16th and 17th centuries. The squatter's room. Former Church Institute member and local Stan Pices received a letter from the workers at the adjoining car baker's yard in 1985 that confirmed what many locals had observed. Squatters had moved into Sutton House, which had been empty for a few years. They announced their arrival and intentions with a letter to a nearby residence which read, "Hello, as you've probably noticed, something is happening at Sutton House. Several of us have moved in and are hoping to convert it into a kind of community centre." The squatters renamed Sutton House the Blue House and described it as a kind of refuge. They opened up a cafe, held gigs in the Wenlock barn, and led arts and crafts workshops from the house. Their aim was to provide a space, particularly for local unemployed, to learn and develop skills in clothes making, leatherwork, painting and drawing. After a few years, the remaining squatters were issued an eviction order by the National Trust. They were given 6 weeks to vacate the building. The house was to be sold to the developers and turned into 5 luxury flats. Local community members formed Save Sutton House campaign and successfully convinced the National Trust to invest in the restoration of the house and open it to the public. To celebrate the 30th anniversary of the squatters' arrival at Sutton House in 2015, this room was formerly an exhibition room, was converted into a recreation of how it might have looked in 1985. The room was created in consultation with some of the squatters who lived here, using oral testimonials, photographs, artworks created with the community group. Brilliant. Gosh, that bedding looks filthy. And I hear they never wash their body linen. Mural of an eye. This was painted by an anonymous squatter in the house in 1985. It is said to be the emblem of the rock group PSI. Seeing a Tudor house. Not what you expect, is it? I love it. London never ceases to surprise and delight me. Now my lambs, we go down here. Across their step. In the original day, that attic room probably would have been servants' quarters. I love this room, I think it's brilliant. This is the way we came, wasn't it? No, did we do this chamber? No, we didn't. These houses are, wow. They're just like mazes, really, aren't they? Absolutely love places like this. Got such a rich history in this city. We really have. Privileged. And a big one happened for me recently, which you will see soon. With our St Olave's Church, which will be the last part of, you've probably seen it already because this will be going on after the Samuel Pepys stuff, the last part of our Samuel Pepys tour. I was allowed to go inside the vestry. I wasn't allowed to film because of obviously the things that they have in there, but I was allowed to photograph and hold in my hand the prayer book, Samuel Pepys' prayer book. I mean, that was just, wow. I always think my dad would look fetching in something like this. And a statute cap worn at a jaunty angle. Spanish work, that's known as. Catherine of Aragon was famous for that. She used to sew Henry VIII's shirts. What they mean is she got the shirts and she would do the fine fancy embroidery. And even when they were going through the process of their annulment and splitting up, he still had her sew his shirts for him because they were the shirts that he'd been used to. And when Anne Boleyn found out, she was pissed. She was fuming. And then Catherine of Aragon stopped making Henry VIII shirts for him. It was that time when Anne Boleyn famously said, "I desire that all the Spaniards were at the bottom of the sea," which you can well imagine pissed the Spanish off, and they all gloated in her downfall and death, particularly Eustace Chapuis, Ambassador Chapuis. I'm just going to walk you back through this way. Just have a quick looky look of where we've been. I'm just waiting for another group to go down the stairs so I can take us down. Writing slope. Me and my dad love writing slopes. My dad would like that. We're gonna go down these stairs. Taking us to another part of the house, so I'm going to have to pause you for a minute in a sec. Sampler, 1820. Hackney churchyard at the back of St Augustine's Tower, 1888. This would be in its main door, wouldn't it, really? Georgian parlor. In the 1720s, Hackney was still a village built around a single street, Mayor Street. The former church street surrounded by farmland, it remained popular with the gentry who built their grand houses in the wealthy countryside, which contrasted so strongly with the crowded streets of the city. In 1743, Mary Toke, a wealthy widow, moved into Sutton House. She was the first of many Huguenots to occupy the house over the next 70 years. She was also the last for over 100 years to live in the house as a whole, as it was divided into two. In Tudor times, this room may have been used as a buttery. A buttery was a room where food was stored and also a place for serving food, waiting to be taken to the Great Hall. In Georgian times, the room would have been used for hobbies, entertaining guests, and especially for the new fashion of drinking tea. In the 18th century, tea drinking was thought to be beneficial, but was also an ostentatious and expensive pastime. A pound of tea cost more than a week's wages for a skilled man, who would be kept in a locked box, a caddy, in the parlour. The young women of the house would have learnt to sing, dance and sew in this room. Developments in cabinet making meant that Georgian furniture was refined and elegant. It was also light and easy to move from room, so the room could be used for various ways. Lovely room. This way, we haven't been here.
Ooh la la, looks like it.
Anything there? No? Anything there?
Yeah, there's piano.
Let's pop you down a minute. It's just a virginal. Do you? An amazing place. I love places like this.
Julia's going down to the chapel.
Should check out the next one, which is here. The kitchen. Cooking in a Tudor kitchen. The master cook would have been in charge of the kitchen. He and his staff both ate and slept here. Large houses like Sutton House would bake their own bread, and villagers' bread, pies and pastries were also cooked in the bread oven. Meats was boiled in a cauldron, roasted on a spit. Spits were turned by young boys who would baste the meat using a long ladle. The boys were protected from the heat by a shield of wet straw or a piece of wood. Iron trivets, tripods set near the fire for frying. Sauces, egg dishes and preserves were cooked over charcoal that allowed heat to be controlled. Water would be carried from the well. The Tudor kitchen. Pause to read. Rats in Tudor kitchens. Tudor towns were dangerous places to live. They were overcrowded with unhygienic, and the streets were filled with litter and sewage. Rats thrived in these conditions. While Sutton House was a rural escape from the bustling, unsafe towns, rich houses were not immune to the risk that rats posed. In Tudor kitchens, bread and flour were stored off the ground to keep the rats out. The Black Death, which spread throughout Europe some 200 years before Sutton House was built, is believed to have been caused by fleas living on black rats that arrived in England on merchant ships carrying food. Servants in Tudor kitchens would be particularly vulnerable to disease from rats, as not only did they work here, but they slept in the kitchen as well. As well as disease, rats presented further risks for domestic staff. Ratsbane, a kind of arsenic used for killing rats, is also lethal to humans, which could easily be mistaken for flour. Take heed, thou layest the bane for the rats, for poisoning servant thyself and thy brats. Spices. backyard garden is quiet. We should go out there and have a quick look. Oh, this is nice. How lovely is this? Tie braces up there, look. And this is the 1991 extension that was built by the lottery grant, and this allows for events and things like that. What would an ancient Egyptian pharaoh say about a house like this? Probably something like, "Beautiful house. It has no rivals," said in ancient Egyptian. First, the handle's low down. I'm short and even I had to bend.
I know, and it.
I'm amazed that they kept it under the
And that, ladies and gents, concludes our tour of Sutton House. Hope you've all enjoyed. I'm a liar, there's more. There's a chapel, which I don't know about. The early 20th century was a time of rare stability for Sutton House. Two divided houses were reunited as one after being purchased by St John Church at Hackney in 1895. Pause to read the description. I'm standing with one leg bent on a flight of stairs, and it isn't very comfortable, my dears. And this is perfect for a Sunday, isn't it? Particularly a Palm Sunday. This chapel was dedicated by the Bishop of Stepney on May the 30th, 1914, to the glory of God and in honour of St John the Baptist. And if you watched the St Augustine's Tower, the video of that, which was the only remaining part of the church that Samuel Pepys would have attended when he was staying in Hackney, and when he later returned as an adult man as well, and went to church there and noted it in his diary that he heard a pair of organs played. St John's is the one that's opposite, and I will cover that another time separately when we're off of the Pepys Trail. I'll pause you for a minute. I think that concludes the inside of the house. So join me in a minute for the end, unless we find any other rooms.